as you heard in the children's time, a king. Did you know that currently there are 43 countries in this world that have some form of a monarch? 43. Some of them are absolute kings. When they say jump, and the person in front of them jumps. Others are constitutional monarchies. There are limits on what the king or queen can do. And still others are mere figureheads. Figureheads, you know. They have important roles, but they can't make laws. They have things to say, and they're watched, but they are not in charge of the government. Then there are, of course, other such kings. There's Elvis, right? The reference to him was the king, right? Or Michael Jackson, king of pop. We use the term in those ways also. Or you can look back in history. There are kings. A few of them good, many of them not so good. King David, King George, Ivan the Terrible, Julius Caesar, all of them were considered kings. To this day, in this country, we are still fascinated by English royalty. Something happens to the family, it makes our news. It's on the screen automatically. But when it comes to paying for their lifestyle, for their homes and the cars and all the pomp and circumstances, as far as we're concerned, the English can have them. They're not about to pay for a king. Thank you very much. You see, the truth is that most of us don't know much about kings and queens and princes. We don't have them, we don't trust them, and most of us don't want them. The king has never summoned you in. He's seen there from his throne and said to you, give an accounting of how you have been loyal to me in these last few months. Has the king ever called you in and said to you, this is what you owe me, I'll take half of what you owe? Now you may know what it means to have a boss. The guy who can fire you, the guy who does the job with you. You know what it is to have a boss, and yet he doesn't rule your life. For those of you who were in the service, you remember the drill instructor, right? The marching. The sergeant could make your life miserable. So could a king. But the sergeant had other officers who were over him, to whom he asked to report. So when we come to this last of the year, king, how do you understand that? How do you understand that Jesus is king as compared to all these earthly rulers who are so different? He's not a politician running for office. He's not a president who gets elected for a year or two and then a former president. Scripture says that Jesus is king. He was, he is to come. Alpha and Omega. Not just part-time, but for all time. And so we struggle when we hear that Jesus is king. This morning, did you get up this morning and ask yourself, how will I serve the king today? Or did you get up in a hurry and make it to church on time? Or did you have a debate within yourself of what you're going to do on this day? Didn't think much about king, did you? When we think of king, we usually think of power and might and armies and battles and winning. Even David had a sling, right? And yet, when you compare that to Jesus, you see Jesus is a king. Maybe the description from Revelation will help you understand the kind of king we have. Revelation chapter 1. Grace to you, peace from him who is, and was, and who is to come, and from the seven spirits who are before his throne, and in Jesus Christ, the King. First description, the faithful witness. Second, the firstborn of the dead. And third, the ruler of the kings of the earth. Think about those three. First of all, Scripture says that Jesus is the faithful witness. He comes to earth. He has a purpose. He comes to save us from our sin and our rebellion and our wayward ways. In order to do that, he fulfills the law, he keeps the law fully, he dies on the cross. He does that with faithfulness, completely. He is the faithful witness to God's love and to God's will. That's what that is all about. He is giving testimony with his life and with his blood. Testimony to God's love for you and for me. Philippians chapter 2, verse 8 puts it like this. His faithful witness humbled himself and becomes obedient to the point of death, even death on the cross. And if you'll pardon the Greek word for witness is the same as the word for martyr. This faithful witness will give himself for us. It's also a challenge. In Revelation has been written, persecution is beginning. Christians are being stopped on the street, asked if they're loyal to Caesar or not. And Christians will not be. They can be arrested, they can be made slaves, they can be thrown in jail, they can be executed. Just as around the world this day there are martyrs who make a faithful witness to Jesus Christ. Even today we have brothers and sisters in the Middle East and other parts of the world who remain faithful in spite of persecution and execution. Jesus is the faithful witness. The second title that John uses for Jesus in Revelation is the firstborn of the dead. Obviously that is a reference to the resurrection, but think of what all it says. Firstborn. It means yes, first. It also means that there are others who will follow. It carries within it the promise that death will not be the end. For you, for me. Firstborn of the dead. It is a way of confessing what the church has always said. Jesus died on the cross, was buried. But on the third day, that tomb was empty. Jesus was alive, firstborn of the dead. So when we go over to the graveyard and we bury a loved one, we do so with the hope that Jesus is the firstborn of the dead. That person who has died in faith will have a place in the life beyond this world. And we say that Jesus has both the power and the authority as King to give us that life. Firstborn of the dead. The third title, ruler of the kings of the earth. There have been many people who have tried to be the ruler of all the kings. There have been empires. No one yet on this earth has succeeded. But in the Old Testament, God says that he will make David the highest of the kings of the earth. That's where this title comes from. The idea that Jesus will rule over all. Symbolism of the stars. The whole universe, not just some And for those who were living under kings who were what we would call pagans, kings who were often not interested in the common good, it was inspiring. It was hopeful because there would be a ruler who would be good. It gave hope to the people as they lived their daily lives. The idea also is that the king who was ruling would have to give an answer for what they had done, because Jesus was the king over even them. Or if you like, put it in the words of the earliest confession of the church, of the New Testament. It's very simple. Early Christians simply said, Jesus is Lord. That's it. But that meant that Caesar was not. That meant that the local king was not. It meant that Jesus was Lord of their lives, of their world. Jesus is king of all the peoples of the earth. Christ is king. It doesn't matter whether you know what a king really is like. It doesn't matter whether or not you ever met an earthly king or queen. It simply declares what Scripture proclaims, that Jesus Christ is king. Good, wonderful, faithful, loving, firstborn of the dead, ruler of all the kings. That should bring to us, in this season of giving thanks, joyful hearts, that we have a king who is loving and good, who gave himself for us, a faithful witness who makes the good confession. So, come down. Come down off of that make-believe throne you have. The one where you are in charge. The one where the world sort of revolves around you. Where you are at the center of the universe. Come down off of that throne and confess that Jesus Christ is the King of your life and of this world. Not just a figurehead, not just elected for church time, but Jesus is King. And when you get out of bed in the morning, as one person put it at a conference I was at, when your feet hit the floor, when your feet touch the floor, whether it's cold or warm, think to yourself, here I am, Lord, reporting for duty. And then ask yourself how you are going this day to serve and follow your King. Amen.